Change is imminent here in 2021. And when it comes to prepping, we might have to take some different approaches. So in this video, we're going to talk about 3 focuses of prepping in 2021 that I'm working on and that you should probably work on as well. We have to prepare for loss in this year. And when I say that, it might not mean exactly what you think. So stick around for the rest of the video. We're going to talk about what those 3 areas of focus are and why we need to prepare for loss when it comes to the year 2021. Hey everybody, it's Magic Prepper, and today we're going to talk about 3 areas of focus for prepping in 2021. It's what I'm working on and what I'm concerned about, and I'm giving you some ideas about what you can probably work on as well. This is a new year and a new administration for our country, which means we're going in a new direction. There's a new ideology in charge, and we have to prepare for things to change from what they were before. And we know that some of the trajectory that we're on is going to be negative in the sense of certain areas of our lives. And we need to be aware of that now so we can be more proactive in how we're going to handle those situations when they arise. Which is why I'm going to share 3 areas of focus that I'm prepping for in 2021 so I can give you some ideas about what you can be working on as well. And if you're worried about where we're heading here in 2021 and you want to be more prepared and you want to keep preparing, then hit the subscribe button below because it's going to help us all grow together, and we need to build this community and network more and more, especially in this year and especially in what's coming our way, okay? And when I say that, you'll understand what I mean here very shortly. Now, the first focus I'm prepping for here in 2021 and that you need to be aware of. And when I say we're preparing for loss, it's because we're going to lose some things in this year and beyond, in my opinion at least. And the first thing is going to be loss of income. Now, there's a lot of reasons why we need to prepare for loss of income. And we all know without income, we basically don't have anything. It's very hard to prepare if you don't have an income. If you don't have a house, if you don't have your bills paid, you don't have a vehicle or any of those things, it's very difficult to be prepared. And in fact, it's a personal SHTF scenario at that point that you have to find an answer to that not everybody else can give you the right answers for. However, the reason we need to prepare for loss of income is multifaceted. But honestly, we can see what's happening and see the writing on the wall, and we need to be proactive in it. So certain regulations and certain executive orders that are already being written are already attacking certain industries. And if you're in these industries, you need to be aware of what's happening and prepare for your income to be affected. So executive orders targeting things like the Keystone Pipeline means that if you work on that pipeline, or if you're part of a construction crew that's part of the pipeline, or if you're a contractor that works on anything related to that energy industry, you need to be concerned about what's going to happen to your career in the future and what's going to happen to your income, okay? And you need to understand that that's not going to be the last thing that happens. It was like the first thing, okay? So we have to understand the energy industry is going to be highly affected, which affects everybody from construction workers all the way to truck drivers. Now, we need more truck drivers. We're in a truck driver shortage. However, this can affect them directly. And if you are a truck driver, in the same way as if you work in the energy industry, you should understand that eventually the goal is to phase you out and replace you with automated vehicles. So we need to be proactive in our loss of income situations and say, okay, do I have a backup plan? Is there another avenue of income that I can use my skills for that's going to be more stable during this new direction the country's heading in and during this whole process and moving over to automation? Now, the same thing can be said about people who work in certain industries when it comes to the effects of the pandemic. Things like the hospitality industry, salons, bars, anything related to that is something else you should be concerned about, because now we have a new administration in place that seems more aggressive in putting in different mandates based on what you can or can't do with your business. And if you're in those industries, you really need to look in the mirror and say, is this sustainable? Can I maintain my income and can I maintain my job? And can I keep moving forward with this industry and be able to pay my bills and pay for all my obligations without finding myself in a bad spot down the road? And that's something you really need to think about and start having a plan for if things fall apart or don't work out in the way that you wish they would. This is just being realistic. And loss of income doesn't necessarily mean losing your job. Also keep in mind that things like targeting the energy industry and changing regulations and unleashing the EPA can affect your cost of living. So even if you're not in an industry where your job or your source of income is going to be affected, the amount of expendable income you have will probably be affected at some point. And you might not have as much money to spend if suddenly gas becomes very expensive, or if suddenly going out to eat becomes too expensive to do, your lifestyle suddenly has to change, and either you're spending more money than you used to, or hey, maybe you're saving money because you can't afford to do it anymore. But either way, things are happening where inflation is on its way, and we know food prices are going to keep rising. And that inflation is going to price some people out of the game to be able to participate in a way that they would like to or currently do. And that is something we all have to consider. So loss of income, preparing for loss, is one of the first focuses that I'm worried about in 2021 and that you should be worried about as well. Diversify yourself. I'm trying my best to figure out if there's other ways to earn more revenue and earn more supplemental income based on what's available to me versus just waiting around to see what happens. And I suggest everyone else do the same. Use your skills and really identify what you're capable of. If your entire career is based in one industry, what can those skills apply towards in the next industry? Maybe you have certain skills that you think are only applicable in, let's say, retail. However, maybe those retail skills can transfer over to something like healthcare because you have the personable skills to be able to interact with the average population. Those are things you need to consider and think about now and start preparing for that situation to possibly occur, since we are now in unknown territory, but what we do know is that regulations are on their way back. So the first thing you need to prepare for in 2021 that I'm working on myself is loss of income. It's something that we all should be concerned about, because anytime there's change, that change could be reflected on your ability to make money. Keep that in mind and try your best to see what you can do, okay? So, moving from there, the second thing that I'm focusing on in prepping in 2021, and the thing we have to worry about losing, is free speech. Loss of free speech is definitely something that's on the table. We understand big tech has been running rampant with censorship lately, okay? Censorship is all over the place. And especially if you're on social media like I am, you understand that you're constantly being pressured to do this or do that or change what you're able to produce based on what the restrictions and the terms of service are and everything else related to it. And we know that censorship has been just going balls to the wall lately because of everything that's been going on over the last couple weeks. Now, will some of the censorship subside now that the big tech companies have finally spent the last 4 years, I would say, investing in trying to replace the administration that was in the White House and succeeded apparently? Well, if that's the case, maybe they'll pump the brakes a little bit because mission accomplished. But I don't count on it, and I definitely wouldn't bet on it, okay? So, things we can do. Well, first off, obviously branching out to other platforms is good, but those platforms also get deplatformed just like anybody else can apparently. So now we know that that's also a possibility of having to figure out other forms of communication other than just social media platforms, since they can be taken away as well. Now, things that I'm going to personally do is see what else is out there, try to establish more of a network and a community, try to possibly start getting content on other things like even Patreon, which I have people signing up for and I don't even post there. So I'm still trying to figure out ways to spread the net a little wider, basically. And one thing we can do as a community, especially here on this channel, is if you go to magicprepper.com, you can actually sign up for the MAGIC, which is the Mutual Assistance Group Internet Community. And what's great about that is that it gets you on an email list, it lets me contact you directly, and in case this platform or any other social media outlet decides to shut channels like mine down in the future, I can still reach out to you directly, and we can still communicate and still network and make sure that if things do fall apart or there ever is that SHTF scenario, we have some line of communication that's not fully based on the fact of whether or not this platform here decides I should be able to talk to you or not. So that is something important that I would really appreciate everybody doing. And if you do, I mean, I'm going to do my best to keep up on it, get some more newsletters out, try to keep you up to date on good, pertinent information. And at the same time, eventually, let's see if we can, grow the community to the point where we have a network around the country of like-minded people that can help support each other in case of an emergency. That is a goal. Another thing to watch out for in the sense of loss of free speech, okay? Obviously, we know that protests and everything else are going to be heavily regulated. We all know that any assemblies are going to be heavily regulated. We know the pandemic restrictions have regulated the ability to assemble in many, many ways. those are problems. Another problem that we have to watch out for that I'm going to be working on in this year of 2021 is the ability to communicate via things like ham radio. I am going to go out of my way this year to get my ham radio operator's license. I find it very important. I just haven't had the time to do it, and I decided, you know what, I have to make the time and just get it over with, because it's one of the forms of communication that we can maintain during an emergency, during a disaster. If there's no internet, there's a lot of benefits to having the ability to operate a ham radio. However, even that is being regulated. We know states like California are trying to get rid of their repeaters and their towers because it's useless old tech that nobody needs anymore. We all know that a lot of that could just be related to the idea of not letting people talk. So loss of free speech is a huge one that you need to focus on. Figure out ways to get communications, figure out better ways to network as much as you can, and get alternative forms of communication that don't rely on big tech in order to utilize them. Okay? So, the third focus of prepping in 2021 that I'm working on, maybe you need to take a look at, things that we need to talk about, is going to be, of course, on this channel, why else would we talk about it, the loss of your Second Amendment rights. There's a lot of things going on when it comes to gun control, but it's not just firearms, and that's why I want to bring it to your attention. Look, we talk about gun control all the time, and we think, okay, AR-15s, semi-automatic sporter rifles, magazine capacities, yeah, we've heard it before, hopefully it doesn't happen, let's see what happens. Well, we know this is an aggressive gun control agenda-driven administration that recently entered the White House, and we also know that they're trying to target more than just firearms. And this is why I've been preaching it to the choir for a long time, but it's still important to touch base on and be concerned about. So listen, anytime these things get regulated, anytime that your access or your options are restricted on how you feel best to defend yourself and your family from whatever threats might be out there, it hurts us as a community. Preppers should be able to choose the best options for them when it comes to taking care of themselves in an SHTF scenario. And the less options there are, the less ability you have to possibly take care of yourself in the most efficient way. And we know right now that places like Florida have gun bills out there that are trying to ban semi-automatic rifles, basically, and anything with a 10-round or higher magazine, okay? So 10-round magazine capacities, of course, that's a thing. It's always been around, whatever. Semi-automatic rifles, yeah, they're always trying to push that one, I know. But that's just the start of it. Then you start looking at states like New York, where they're trying to pass bills where civilians aren't allowed to have body armor. So interesting that bulletproof vests, which are specifically and only designed for self-defense, there is no offensive purpose behind them very much at all. However, a self-defense item that's strictly self-defense is being regulated because why should civilians need bulletproof armor? Keep that in mind, because as a prepper and as someone who's worried about an SHTF scenario occurring, of course the idea of having armor is a good idea, because you know that if you're going to be in a situation where there's a possibility of bullets flying, it's nice to know that you have some protection. However, states like New York are trying to say that maybe you shouldn't even have that, because let's be honest, what's really going to happen? So that being said, that's being regulated, but one more thing you need to be aware of is that even the accessories are being regulated. Facebook recently said they're not going to advertise firearms accessories anymore. So it used to be you couldn't advertise weapons, including knives and stuff like that, but now it's accessories. So now we're going back to loss of income. Maybe you make holsters, maybe you make mag carriers, maybe you make accessories even in the sense of something like binoculars. Now you can't advertise them anymore. Why binoculars? Well, let's see. If Facebook decides that they're a firearms accessory because they're used primarily for hunters who are using them in conjunction with a rifle, suddenly it's a firearms accessory and maybe you can't advertise it anymore. These are things we need to watch out for, because suddenly not only are we going to restrict our access of being able to get firearms, ammunition, which trying to push background checks on that, just like in California, then they're going to try to push magazine capacities, then they're going to try to push things like body armor. Now they're trying to say, well, we're not even going to advertise accessories anymore either. So your optics, your carriers, your slings, things that don't actually do the thing that they're worried about are now also being targeted and attacked. And then if you're in that business and you make holsters, loss of income, because now you can't advertise as well as you could before. These are all things that we have to watch out for. We know this is going to keep getting worse and worse, and hopefully, if you're one of the new gun owners that came into the market in 2020, you're ahead of the game and you at least got some things before all this stuff happens. That's why I've been talking about it so much over the last year, because it's great to have the items before they become inaccessible. So hopefully you've gone out and gotten yourself some good sporting rifles. Hopefully you've gone out and gotten yourself some magazines. Hopefully you've gotten plenty of ammunition. Sorry if you didn't, but what I'm trying to say is these are 3 areas of concern, 3 areas of focus, and 3 things we're probably going to lose at least some form of during 2021. So that's why I wanted to bring it to your attention, give you all some ideas of things you can look at, focus on, try to get prepared for, and be ahead of the game on in case things start to fall apart here. And like I said, don't forget to join MAGIC. Let's build that network and that community. Just go to magicprepper.com and sign up right on the front page. And that way we can basically cut out the middleman if need be. Because as of right now, for all of you out there that watch this channel, and I appreciate your support very much, understand that at any time this platform can just say, you know what, you don't need to hear what he has to say anymore. And that could happen. So without anything else to say about 3 areas of focus that we need to be prepared to lose on in 2021, that's going to be it for Magic Prep.